My wife, F47, and I, M50, have been together for 20 years. 2 decades filled with memories, challenges, and moments of joy. We've raised 3 teenagers who are just on the edge of adulthood, each of them with their own unique traits and personalities. It's hard to believe it's been that long. We've been through so much together, everything from the excitement of our wedding to the everyday grind of managing life as parents. We've had our fights, sure, but we always seem to come back to each other. I thought we were solid, that our bond was unbreakable. The first few years of our marriage felt like a honeymoon phase, even with the pressures of life. I worked hard, often putting in long hours, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, doing everything I could to provide. My wife ran her own business from home, balancing that with managing the kids' schedules, housework, and everything else. She was always on top of things, always looking out for everyone, including me. But over time, I began to notice things, small things, but things that added up. It wasn't just one thing, but a slow accumulation of behaviors that raised red flags in my mind. I should have paid more attention earlier, but I didn't. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that she was still the same woman I married, the one who had been my partner and best friend. But after about 8 years into our marriage, everything changed. It was subtle at first. A late-night text message she tried to hide. A phone call that seemed too private. And then I found a pattern, something I couldn't ignore. I discovered that she had been in regular contact with one of her exes, texting, calling, emailing. It wasn't casual. It was intense, flirtatious, and emotional. It felt like a betrayal. And when I confronted her, she brushed it off, saying it was just friendly catching up. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. I started snooping, checking her phone, her messages, her email, until I found pages of conversations between them. It wasn't just friendly catching up. It was something deeper, something more intimate. And it crushed me. The more I found, the more I realized that this wasn't just a passing moment. This had been going on for a while, and my wife was keeping secrets from me. I confronted her again, showing her the evidence I'd found. She swore it was nothing, that she'd only been talking to him, that it wasn't an affair. She promised it would stop, and I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her again. But the doubt crept in. I started to question everything, every word, every look, every gesture. It was like the foundation of our relationship was cracking beneath my feet, and I couldn't stop it. I wanted to fix things, to move past this, but it wasn't as easy as she made it sound. The lies didn't stop. I kept checking, kept looking, and it was like playing a sick game of hide-and-seek. Their conversations moved off one platform and onto another, different apps, secret messages. Every time I thought I had found the truth, I found more questions. Our fights got worse, more frequent, more heated. I'd accuse her, and she'd deny it, claiming that I was just being paranoid. The tension between us grew unbearable, and for the first time in our marriage, I seriously considered leaving. But I didn't. I kept holding on because I didn't want to break up our family. I didn't want to be the guy who destroyed everything, especially for the kids. So I kept trying. I tried to talk, to understand, to forgive. But it wasn't until I took matters into my own hands that things changed. I found the guy she'd been seeing, the one she'd been hiding. I tracked him down, and I confronted him. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I knew I had to. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about protecting my family, saving my marriage, and showing her that I wouldn't let this go without a fight. I made it clear that his actions were destroying my family, that what he was doing wasn't just hurting me, it was hurting our kids, our future. I stayed calm, but inside I was seething. I told him that if he didn't stop contacting her, I'd report everything to his boss. We were in similar fields, and I knew the power I had. He backed off, but I didn't feel any relief. I wasn't sure if it would last. I didn't know if she would stop. The months that followed were a blur. There were moments when things felt normal again, but I couldn't forget what had happened. The pain lingered beneath the surface, even though we tried to rebuild. We started being more open with each other. We talked more about our needs, our desires, and our fantasies. It felt like a step forward, like we were finally getting back on track. And then, one night, my wife shared something with me that caught me off guard. She confessed that she had always fantasized about being with multiple men. Not just 2 or 3, but a whole group. She even talked about being part of a gangbang with 10 or more men. It shocked me, but instead of shutting it down, I listened. We talked about it for hours, discussing boundaries and what that fantasy would mean for us. As the days passed, we took a bold step and created a FetLife account together. At first, it felt like a new chapter in our relationship, an exploration of something we hadn't considered before. We posted pictures, shared our fantasies, and waited for feedback. And soon enough, the responses started pouring in. Friend requests, messages, attention. It was like she had stepped into a world where her desires were not only accepted but encouraged. But then, something didn't sit right with me. One day, while she was away, I found her email open on her computer. And there it was, a flood of emails from a familiar, sexually suggestive username. It wasn't the first time I'd seen something like this, but this was different. This was a man from her past, someone she had been seeing when we were dating, when we were engaged, and even during the early months of our marriage. They had been having an affair for years. I couldn't breathe as I opened the emails. The messages were explicit, full of lust and longing. I felt sick to my stomach. As I read through the messages, I felt like the world around me was crashing down. Not only had she been cheating on me, but this affair had been going on for the entirety of our relationship. They had met at hotels, had sex behind my back, and even used her home office to carry on their secret meetings. And to make things worse, the man had found her on FetLife and sent her a friend request, the first one to reach out to her on that platform. I recognized his avatar, the same dick pic he had sent her in one of the emails. The betrayal was worse than I could have ever imagined. I confronted her, of course. She promised it would stop, just like last time. She cried, begged me to forgive her, swore that it would never happen again. But I wasn't sure if I could believe her anymore. Not after everything. Not after the years of lies and deception. And then, life threw another cruel twist my way. I was diagnosed with a severe medical condition. I was hospitalized for weeks, facing an uncertain future, and needing long-term care. You would think that this would be the wake-up call for her, that she would see how fragile everything was and try to fix things. Instead, she used my absence as a chance to continue her affair. I had never felt so betrayed in my life. I was fighting for my health, and she was still playing games behind my back. When I confronted her again, she swore it was over. But I found more evidence. More emails, more accounts, more signs of their ongoing contact. I started to suspect they were using burner phones, hiding everything from me. Now, I don't know what to believe anymore. She tells me how much she loves me, how she can't lose me, how she needs me. But I don't hear love in her words anymore. All I hear is manipulation. I'm so worn down by the lies, by the constant cycle of betrayal. The only time she stopped was when I confronted the other man, and I feel like I have no choice but to do it again. But even then, I don't know if it will make a difference. The hardest part is the kids. They're old enough to understand the weight of what's happening, and I know they would be devastated if we split. I can't bear the thought of causing them more pain. I think about leaving, about starting fresh, but I'm torn. I feel trapped between what's best for me and what's best for them. The idea of confronting him again, exposing everything I know, feels like my only option left. But I don't know if it will fix anything.